What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the O Show podcast, episode 442. We are presented by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sign up and get your membership now. They're open. They opened on October 30th for the grand opening. We got a ton of content coming out for them. Went down there to Scottsdale. We're also sponsored by betonline.ag. Week 9 of the NFL this week. Make your picks. The Atlanta Braves just won the World Series, so you can't make picks there anymore. Megan Gallagher is on the show today. I was on your show, reaching new heights back in, I think it was like March, February, like 10 years ago. It doesn't feel like it's been the same year, honestly. Like 2021 has been a completely different vibe from 2020, I feel like, where it's just gone by, I don't know, slow and fast at the same time, where 2020 was just slow.
Seriously, like this past year has felt so, just the energy, very different from other years. But I do remember that interview. That seems like forever ago, but I remember it.
And you got a ton of different projects going on. You got your new book that's out right now. You got, we were talking about right before we came on, I wanted to kick the show off with a bang, because you just moved to Miami from Nashville. You got a ton of, you're a TV host for Freelance. You know, you have all this other stuff going on, obviously. How to thrive in a virtual classroom, which you got right there. But I do want to talk about your first ever comedy skit. Like, you actually went up there, you did a set. Where was it and how did it go? Was it nerve-wracking as hell, or did you actually pull it off?
Okay, so, I mean, first and foremost, I'm so excited to be here, Jack. Thank you for having me. I love the O Show. You're crushing it. I see all your content on LinkedIn. I'm like, yes.
Thank you so much.
Like, such a fan. So, yes, okay, stand-up comedy, it was my first time ever. I was nervous, so a little backstory. Growing up, I'm a theater kid at heart. I was in all of the school plays from like 4th grade, 5th grade, elementary school to high school. I always loved being in the homecoming skits. Like, obviously, I'm an extrovert. On the personality test, I think I'm an ENFJ, like super extrovert, very bubbly, outgoing. And so I've always wanted to do stand-up. That's been like on my bucket list, I think, since I was literally 15 years old. But you know, it's just, I don't know. I just found myself getting in like, you know, excuses and kind of like, oh, you know, when I have time. And so basically I just moved to Miami, like you mentioned. And obviously Miami is a huge city. There's like improv, open mic night, stand up, all these cool comedy theaters. And the good thing about Florida is like a lot of places are open, you know, regarding COVID. So the day before Halloween, I went with some friends. I'm like, let's get some activities going. You know, we're adults, but let's have fun. And so I found this really cool improv theater down the street from me. And so we went, watched this improv show. We were in the audience, and I'm like, this is really cool. Like, just the energy. Everyone was so warm and welcoming and friendly. And I'm like, this is seriously like so awesome. And so I was like, wait, I really want to try like stand-up comedy. And my friends were like, oh my gosh, Megan, you have to. Like, you're so funny. Like, you would crush it. And I'm like, really? Do you think so? And I got kind of nervous, but then they're like, just do it. So I signed up. And it was last night. They have every Tuesday night. Like, anyone can go up for 5 minutes. I was nervous, but honestly, since I've been doing public speaking for so long, like, I definitely know how to work a stage. Right. You know, like you get used to it. But the nerves are still there. It's still a real thing. So I did really well. Like, obviously, you know, I posted it on Instagram, and it was just so fun to like do it and just say I did it. And like, I don't know, I think kind of the moral of the story is like, you know, just do it. And like, it's never too late. Like, I'm 25 years old, and I think a lot of the times we as humans can get into ruts or whatever, where we're like, oh, you know, but no, it's like I'm too old, or like, no, it should be realistic, and like, oh, I don't know, people are gonna think it's weird, but it's not true. Like, you never know who you could inspire. I kind of twist it around anytime my mind starts getting negative, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, actually, I would rather, like, I quoted in my post, Jim Carrey is one of my favorite comedians, and yeah, he says this quote where he's doing like a commencement speech at a college, and he's like, you know, like, risk being seen in all of your glory or live a life of regret. And it's really true. Like, you know, a lot of people have dreams and goals and things, but they never accomplish it. And it's like, that's such a sad thing. Like, I all the time am like, who cares if I'm nervous? I would rather do it now than just, you know,
No, I mean, if you go back and think like, oh God, I wish I had done that, like you're going to wake up the next morning anyways. Like you may as well fall on your face if that's the case, like it may not work out that way. Like it might be awesome, like you probably had a great time. And it probably helps that the crowd was in good vibes too. Cause like it's the crowd and the fans that kind of set the vibe for that kind of stuff. Like you could have great material and it just not come off the way that they think it was.
Oh, 100%. And like, I learned so much, that open mic night, I seriously learned that like, everyone has a different style, a different energy. Like some comedians brought up their iPhone and I'm like, yeah, what? And they put it on a stool and they kind of like, glance. One guy, I mean, not shaming or judging, but one guy brought up like a book, like a literal, just like a full entire book and was like, and I'm like, it's a little weird. And no,
then, we can shame that. Like, we could definitely shame.
I know. I'm like, dude, you're going up doing open, like stand up. Come on now. People want to see your face. You don't want to be like buried in a book. Like that's so weird. But then, it's interesting because people were also saying, like Miami compared to LA, like the stand up culture, the stand up community. I lived in LA for 7 years. And they said it's so much more competitive out there. It's so much more like cutthroat, savage, just like super intense. Like here it's a little more laid back. People are more, like welcoming and not like booing you or just being silent. So I feel grateful that my first experience was really positive. But yeah, honestly, I just went up, I told stories and the time went by really, really quick. But like I think it's just awesome too because like the theater that I went to, they have certain rules. Like, you have to kind of stay away from like being too racist, too sexist, too homophobic, which I think a lot of comedians, sometimes they just go in on like super intense topics and they just like roast people. And like I've been in comedy shows back in LA where I'm like, did he seriously just say that? And it's super, obviously in today's day and age, it's such a slippery slope with not offending certain people. And so I don't know, that theater is a really awesome one. It's called the Villain Theater in Miami. They're really, really cool.
Yeah, I literally just had a comedian on our show last week talking about being a comedian in kind of a cancel culture society. Like it's one thing if you're Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr or Joe Rogan talking about that stuff because you already have a platform. But if you're trying to make it in this industry, like you have to be so careful. Like it is the worst time I feel like to want to be a full-time comedian and trying to make it big as a comedian, because you can't really say anything right.
Oh no, seriously, Jack. It's like, yeah, but that's such a good point. It's like, honestly, when you are, in the early stages of your career and you're building your reputation, your fan base, your content, and people are seeing you live in person, you have to match that persona that you give off online. So it's like, if you're taking, little clips that are like super PG and people are like, oh, she's so cute. But then in person, you're like savage, just like roasting, you have to just be aware of that. But I completely agree.
Oh my God. I mean, you probably went up there, you said, 5 minutes? You're probably, you loved it though. Like you could have hated that and it would have felt like 5 years, like that's kind of the way time works when you're happy or not feeling it. But you felt like that went well. Like what kind of stories did you tell?
Yes, I honestly, I kind of rehearsed it a little bit, like a few days before. I just went through the jokes and like, basically I just talked about, I've been in Miami for 1 month, my dating craziness and like, not my Instagram post, because I did post on Instagram about this date that I had in Miami, which was traumatic. Not that. I definitely talked about like the funny, when you go to the grocery store at 8 a.m. and you just are like sweatpants, no makeup. And there's like, this is a real thing. Like these crazy like sugar daddies in Miami that like literally, come up to you out of nowhere. And they're just like, it's such a real thing. Miami is a crazy city, but I talked about that. I talked about like, going to South Beach and how different that is and how people, said I look like a jar of mayonnaise. Like they're talking about my skin complexion. They're like, you look like Casper the Ghost. Like this is genuinely, it really did happen. Like I would just be walking to go get coffee and people just drive by and they're like, what's up, Casper the Ghost? And I'm like, me? It's so crazy. I know. So that's, another reason why I did not move to South Beach. It's a great place, but it's definitely a little more like party scene. So yeah, I just had fun with it. I talked about being a millennial and like my mom sending me, snacks and waters and like soap and everything, acting as if there's no grocery store here, and like me, trying to manifest the love of my life, and I don't know, going on Tinder, like just funny, goofy things. But yeah, it was really, really fun. And I think it's like, I think everyone should do it. I think it's a really, cool thing, just like public speaking or trying an improv class. It's like, you just like grow so much. You get so outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, I feel like you got to go to a place like where you were at last night, where everyone's accepting, everybody's trying to build each other up too,
Yeah.
like talking about the vibe of the room. Like you can't just like walk into like Philly and do a stand-up show at some famous club and be like, all right, you got 5 minutes, let's see what you got, because they could roast you alive.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's the thing about this industry is like, you have to, just like what I do, on camera, red carpet hosting, things can change right before you're going on. So you have to be so like camera ready, because you never know. They could say, oh, Megan, no, we want you over here now. Like, did you memorize the guest list of who's walking the carpet tonight? Like,
right.
It's a really intense industry.
So how is freelance going? Because that's what you moved to Miami for. Just kind of, short detail. How's that been going, as opposed to, because you were with Music City before in Nashville?
Correct. Yeah, I was with Music City. I love them so much. And we did a lot of Nashville culture, like a lot of fun places on Broadway Avenue, really cool, like honky tonk dive bars. But yeah, so now in Miami, I'm doing freelance work, which has its pros and its cons. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. But I seriously, one of the best events was the Sports Illustrated swim party at Miami Swim Week, which is like New York Fashion Week, but it's all about swimwear, Miami. So it definitely has like a cool, twist to it. And that was the coolest fashion show I've ever been at. And wow. I got to meet like, all these models that I look up to in real life. And it just like, it was so full circle. And the editor-in-chief of Sports Illustrated, MJ Day, was there, which was also really cool. And it's just, I love that fashion show because, I think honestly, like as a female, as someone who is in the modeling industry, I think, it's important that there are fashion shows where they include all body types. I saw models that were 5'3". There was a model, Kathy Jacobs. She's like my spirit animal. I love her. She's 65 years old, and that was her first runway show ever. Because, in the typical fashion industry, there's certain, height requirements and certain things that can allow you to do runway work versus like, editorial, like you're in a J.C. Penney catalog, like those, like I can do that because I'm 5'7". But Sports Illustrated, it gives hope to like, girls of all heights and races and everything. And it's just so refreshing. And it's like, that party was so fun. And all of the models were so nice. Like you could just go up to them at the after party and take a selfie. They're so down to earth. And it's always so cool. And I know you can relate to this, Jack, like to meet the people that you've been following on Instagram for years, like your heroes, to meet them in person. And to like, it never gets old. And like to know that they're just exactly what you'd think they're like, it's so cool.
Well, that's kind of a clear distinction there. Like, what would you say? Like, some of these people are exactly how you pictured how they would be. Have you met any of your quote-unquote heroes or celebrities that you thought in a completely different way, just following them or just seeing their stuff throughout your life and then meeting them in person? It was completely different?
Yes. So I met... like an example, I met Olivia Culpo, who is super, super famous. She's beautiful. She's like a huge idol of mine. She's a really, smart entrepreneur. She's a model. She's a businesswoman. She's super, super, super just all over. I love her energy. I met her in person, and she was the nicest, like so down to earth, so sweet. We took a selfie. We took a video. She looks like just gorgeous in person. It's so cool to meet them. I was literally like shaking starstruck. I also met Camille Kostek, who is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, stunning. And she was so sweet. She actually was walking around the party before they were doing the magazine signing, and she's like, Meg? And I'm like, did someone, like, no one really calls me that unless they like, it's my mom or my friend. And I turned around and I'm like, oh, and it was Camille. And I'm like, is this a joke? Because I've looked up to her. She's been on my vision board for years. And she's like, what's up, girl? And I'm like, hello? Like, holy, she's so nice. And then all of them, I mean, Jasmine Sanders, I've interviewed her a few times for Meditation Magazine and like different kind of, you know, columns and blogs that I've worked at. So she's stunning, so nice. And yeah, you know, it's just like, it's so cool because these girls, like, genuinely, no joke, they've been on my vision board since I lived in LA. Like, I've been loving Sports Illustrated for years and years and years. And it's really cool because I do believe in manifestation. I also believe in working hard and, you know, being kind to people and so many other things. But it's like, I seriously, you know, I met these girls and I'm like, this is just insane. Like, to be in this circle where they know my name and I'm getting invited to their, I'm like, this is the best day of my entire life. And, you know, yeah, after that Sports Illustrated Miami Sweek fashion show, I literally came home and I was doing like backflips the entire night. I'm like, I'm not going to bed. Like, I'm so excited. It was just so cool. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's so cool though when, like, you know, manifestation meets the right timing and like hard work. And oh, it's just, it was so special. Like, seriously, one of the best nights of my entire life.
Oh, I mean, it must be such a rewarding thing, too. To not only, like, it's one thing to have, like, someone like that follow you on Instagram or just, like, following your stuff casually.
Right?
But for Camille to be like, Meg, like, is that you? Like, what?
Oh, my gosh. I literally almost...
I would have looked around like, what?
I literally almost, like, dropped to the ground, Jack. I was like, is this real life? I seriously was so shocked. And she's like, and this also goes to show, you know, like, you never know who is watching your content because, you know, I treat every post as if it's like someone is just coming to my page for the first time, because I've had many instances like that Camille Kostek moment. She's like, oh my God, I loved your one TikTok video where I'm like, she saw, so like, yeah, it just reminds me that you literally never know who is watching your stuff and who will see that one episode and they're like, oh, you know, I want this guy to come on my show. Or, so it was so cool that Camille, like, the feeling was so mutual and she's a fan of mine and I'm a fan of hers. She's like stunning and so sweet, so down to earth. And yeah, I mean, everyone, Haley Khalil, Christy Valdesari, Katie Austin, I've had her on my podcast before. We, you know, we're friends. She's so cool. And she actually got Rookie of the Year, which is so awesome. So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's really
cool. It's so cool. She's so sweet, and I love her mom. And I don't know, everyone. It's a cool community. Like, when you get in this industry, and you just, you know, you give out that vibe, and people give it back to you. So,
oh my God, I mean, it really opens your eyes to how hard you really worked when someone like that actually acknowledges it and appreciates it. You're like, holy shit, they're actually watching this. Like, this is actually, like, I'm actually doing this.
Yeah, it's seriously, it's so true. It's like, it was just really, yeah, I love Sports Illustrated. They're such a good brand, and I think that the fashion industry, it is changing, and it really makes me happy as a female, as someone that used to struggle with body image issues. It makes me really proud knowing that, like, there are brands and companies like SI where they really, you know, they represent, like, they walk the walk, and they're paving the way for so many other brands to, like, you know, just be open to change and to use models that are 5'2" or, you know, of a different race, or they're transgender, or, you know, they're curvy, like, whatever it is. It's just, it's really like, it's slowly yet surely, like, opening up, which is really cool.
And it's genuine and authentic too. Like, it's one thing for be like, all right, this is the way the world's going, let's just jump on that ship. Like, I feel like it's actually something that everybody's on board with. You're all on the same page, and it's actually free flowing as opposed to forced.
It is. It's seriously, it's definitely the way that the world is going. And I'm so grateful for that, I'm not only friends with models that are of all heights and shapes and sizes, but it's like, I'm kind of doing that, like, for my younger self. Like, I'm staying true to, you know, what feels good to me. And I'm just, you know, owning my natural, like, you know, body. And it can be hard at times, for sure. Like, I have haters online that DM me sometimes, but then I'm just like, I'm going to spread kindness back to you.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, you got so much going on, whether it be, being a host, whether it's, your new book, which I want to talk about now, just giving its promotion, how to thrive in a virtual classroom. I'm going to go ahead and say that this was COVID inspired, given that, people have all around the world, at least I think it's starting to open up a little bit. I'm not when it comes to that stuff, but people were, again, online at home over Zoom, being in the classroom, whether it was grade 1 through 12. That's the way it was. I grew up on the East Coast too, and I've had this conversation multiple times with people. Like, it's awesome to see that there's now like a loophole for people to be like, all right, we had to adapt to this, and this is cool. We get to do class at home.
Right.
But growing up on the East Coast, I grew up in New Jersey. I always loved snow days. Like, that was the best feeling in the world when you woke up and it's like, I don't have to go to school today. But you don't have that option anymore, because now it's like, okay, I don't have to go into school, but they're going to make me go online. So I just wanted to vent about that for a second, because I do feel bad for people in that retrospect. But talk to me about the book. Again, like, you wrote it, I want to say, within the last year because of everything going on. Who's your target audience, and why were you inspired to write it?
Yes. So this is How to Thrive in the Virtual Classroom. It's my 4th book, you guys, and I seriously could not be more grateful that it is out in the world now. It is available for pre-order on Amazon, I will say. But yes, this book was completely COVID inspired. At the beginning of the pandemic, it feels like 5 million years ago, back in like February of 2020. I was working with teenagers over Zoom. Typically, I was coaching them in person, but we had to make the transition to virtual. And, I was talking with them and helping them navigate, all these crazy times. And I really saw firsthand how they were affected. Like, their prom, their graduation, their everything. It's like it was all gone, or just it had to be over Zoom, and it was so different. And they were so upset and frustrated. So I was like, honestly, I literally was like, I have to do something about this. I mean, I've always been a mental health advocate, but just seeing firsthand how, distraught these teenagers were, I was like, there's a quote, like, when you know better, you should do better. And I'm like, okay, I am seeing it, and it would be like horrible for me to not, have to do something. So, I got this graphic designer named Betsy, and we totally just went to work. Like, we started doing sessions over Zoom. She's in Louisiana. And we just created this book together. It's like 115 pages. It's all, interactive, like really cool, just super fun for guys and girls. And it's all about, taking your power back and kind of like journaling, how you're feeling and how this pandemic has affected you. And we really wanted to make it, geared towards like people of all ages. So like, whether you are in high school or middle school, it's like, it could be for people in college or post-grad, or for adults, wanting to go back to the office space. And I think one thing too about this pandemic is like, now that we're in fall of 2021, it's like, I don't think a lot of people have like been given tools of how to cope with, kind of like the PTSD aspect, just how to like cope with, the feelings of, will it come back again? Will we ever go back to a normal, like all these normal human things? But a lot of people think they're the only one feeling that way, because there's no like general knowledge and education. So that's what, this book is. The sole purpose is to like normalize how you're feeling, to give you like a comfort safety blanket, and to also educate you in like a really fun way where it's like a Lisa Frank journal from the 90s, but like, super modern and fun. So,
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, there's so many people, especially when it started, that really had no idea what to do. Not only from just like a virtual room standpoint where like you're just seeing all your friends and classmates just like this over Zoom, but at the same time, people are stuck in their homes, they're overthinking a lot, people who battle, certain, mental illnesses or depression, or just, overall mental health from any standpoint, from any direction at all. was tough. But at the same time, you're right. Like, we might never go back to a new normal either, or I guess that's what they called it, new normal. We might never go back to what it was prior to February 2020, because people are seeing how great technology like this is. Like, Zoom before February of 2020 was almost non-existent. Like, their stock just went through the roof the last 15 months. And people are seeing, like, even, sports teams, like, we were talking about Sports Illustrated earlier, like, they could easily just say, hey, Megan, we're going to do it remote today on Zoom. Like, you don't need to come in, which is cool that we could do that, but at the same time, it definitely hurts building relationships.
Yes, it's like, I also, during this pandemic, I've spoken at probably like 100 colleges, and it's all been virtual. Like, it's such a blessing. Like, I'm forever grateful, but it is so different. Nothing beats, and you can vouch, like, nothing beats in person, talking with people, shaking their hand, giving them a hug, like seeing them face to face and making that human connection, rather than, over Zoom. It's like, I cannot tell you, Jack, how many times, like, talking to, like, Georgetown University, which was a month ago, there's a class, like a lecture hall filled with, like, 200 students, and all of, like, just the glitches, the time, their teacher's like, I'm like, right. No. And, like, I'm like, just, I feel like it doesn't fully go through, which, I'm so passionate about my work. So it really, bothers me when I feel like, my words are not sinking in, or I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be there in person. But yeah, like, I am very grateful that we're making progress in regards to COVID-19, but it's like, I still have anxiety myself, because I love being in person. Like, I miss it all the time. And that's why, I find things like open mic nights, or anywhere I can get that, little being on stage feeling, it's like, I'll do it.
Oh, it's fun. It's like people kind of forgot what real life human interaction was, because in the midst of everything going on, when everybody's over Zoom, I'm like, this is great. Like, I don't have to leave my home. I don't have to put on a suit if I don't want to. I could just, like, interact. I could just have, like, the top part on and, like, be wearing nothing underneath, and it'd be fine. Like, nobody would know or care. And then you said, like, you get up on stage at a comedy event, or you're going back to live crowds at stadiums for sporting venues or concerts or anything, and you're like, holy crap, like, I've been missing this huge aspect of my life for the past 18 months that I totally forgot was there. It went by so slow that you almost forgot what it was like to be in a crowd of, like, 50,000 people if you're at a concert at a stadium.
Seriously, I mean, it's so, like, it is a trip sometimes. I'm like, where is this world going? Like, sometimes I'll have those in-depth conversations in my mind, but then I'm like, if I'm going too far into, like, it's going to be like I Am Legend or something, I'm like, no, we're not going that far today. But it's like, I literally am just like, I mean, honestly, the only thing it's just like, I will do my part as a mental health advocate, and as someone that, genuinely I've dedicated the last 8 years to, like, really working hard to being that person and to spreading that message. It's like, that's all I can do, at the end of the day. And, like, that's the thing with this book. I really want it. My biggest dream is that it reaches, people, and it reaches the person that really needs it the most. Like, because I constantly am thinking of, my target audience, which is teenagers, like young adults. But then I'm also thinking of, the kids at home who maybe they don't have a positive household, or they don't have parents that support them, or they don't have the financial means. So I'm, like, constantly thinking, how can I get this book to them? Like, I want them to feel, like, included and they have a safe place. Like, I just want to make it accessible for everyone.
How long did it take you to write and publish and get it all out after working with Betsy and all of that?
Yes. So it took, honestly, I would say we started, let me think. We started in November of last year.
Wow.
It took a good, I would say 7 months to write and create, because it was just the two of us, just like, and that's something else, is I like to keep it real. I think a lot of people assume on social media, like, your favorite select, like, all these people, like, it's so glamorous. They have a team of, like, 500 people. And it's like, sometimes, I just like to keep it real. Like, that's my motto. it was just Betsy and I doing Zoom calls twice a week for 7 months. And we, would go back and forth. I would write up a whole new manuscript. She would edit it, go through, do grammatical things, create all the graphic designs. And then we would, like do a review, and then boom, 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 7 months. And then it was finally like here and it was done. And then we just printed it. And so it's now like available for, hardcover, paperback. And I'm currently doing the audio book in my closet right now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited, but it was a long process. But I think writing a book, genuinely, it's one of those really cool things where you do it, you held yourself accountable, and it's like, just to be proud. Like we're already working on my next book together, because Betsy, like, I loved her design so much. So her and I are already like working on my next one.
I mean, it's a lot of work to put that together. Like you said, 2 Zoom calls a week for 7 months to put that together. And that's a quick turnaround for anybody who knows what it's like to be an author and to put together a book and publish it and get all those copies out there and duplicate it as many times as you do. Like, that's a ton of stuff that you probably had to do. What's been the overall feedback so far?
The overall feedback has been really positive. Like, I sent out, so those subscription boxes, Jack? Like when you get, like the weekly, whatever. It's like those boxes, I made my own version. So it was this really cool, blue color. And then I sent out really cool boxes all about mental health. And they had like goodies and stickers and fun, positive affirmations in them. And so I sent it out to all of my, celebrity, well-connected people that I know. So I sent out about 70 boxes, just boom, boom, boom. And then they all posted on their social media. So whether it's a celebrity, a singer, songwriter, actor, dancer, influencer. So I did that. And then after, I launched it available on Amazon for pre-order. But it was really cool making those boxes. I thought it would be a smart idea. Those are so in style, and to kind of make it all about, your mental health matters, take care of yourself, and to have, really cool, like a goodie bag where you can take away things. So that was really fun to make. And then, I just, the feedback has been really, really good. I've given some to family, to friends. The sales have been really good so far for pre-order. And it's just honestly, it's like it's really cool because I've had guys and girls tell me this book is awesome, which is what I wanted. I wanted young men to feel like, oh, I can relate to this book. It's not just girly, or it's not just this. Like, I wanted it to feel super neutral. And I also have been doing a Zoom series with a group of 4 teenage girls from a high school on the East Coast. I'm about to post episode 4, I believe, actually, probably tomorrow. And then it's just cool because, these girls have actually all received a copy, and they've been sharing with me, the realities of being in the virtual classroom and what the transition has felt like going back to normal school. So it's just really inspiring to me that, it's like I'm really, making a difference, and to talk with these girls in real time, and, they're sharing it with their school. It's just really special. All I ever want to do is like help people. And like, of course I have dreams and goals, but the real, the root is just to help other people. And so for me, it's like, it never gets old. Like, I'm such a softie on the inside. Like, I'll have moments where I stare out my window and I'm like, like I start crying.
Oh my God. I must have been insanely difficult trying to make it. Like, you talk about it being a neutral book for everybody. Like we talked about earlier, like whether you're middle school, high school, like the difference between 8th grade students and 9th grade students is like a completely different world. So how did you kind of navigate to the best of your ability, trying to make it a good read for anybody that's actually reading it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I did is I have a Facebook group. It's private. It's with 200 teenagers, all guys and girls. I've been running that for about 5 years, and it's like a weekly group. We talk about our feelings, and once a month I have a Zoom with, just like little groups at a time. I can't do 200, but it's basically like a support group for teenagers and and they get to talk about how they're feeling, what they're worried about in their life, and not be judged or ridiculed in any way. And so for me, I literally use that Facebook group kind of as like a guinea pig, like
Right.
experiment. I would send them pictures of all of the drafts. I would say, okay, you guys, colors, do you like this blue or this dark green? And they were like, oh, blue. So I used them to really test what actual teenagers, what they were really looking for, like what they needed and wanted in a book. And so it was really ideal and perfect because, I mean, some of my, business idols like Kim Kardashian West and Olivia Culpo and so many female entrepreneurs, they use that. They will go to their fans directly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. They will ask their fans straight up, for a perfume bottle, do you like this size or this size? And I think that's a really powerful tactic, is when you go directly to the consumers and you ask them, because at the end of the day, your fans are going to be the ones buying the product. So that's what I did. I went to this Facebook group and I asked the teenagers, do you guys like this color or that color? Do you like these doodles or those doodles? Do you like this font or that font? With every single thing, I asked all those teenagers.
Well, did you get an overwhelming response for one or the other, or was it kind of mixed? Because that is definitely an awesome tactic. Like, listen to your fans, and like they'll give you everything that they want to hear. Like, it'll thrive. But at the same time, if you're talking to all these different people, there's probably a vast majority that's going in every way, which direction. Like everybody wants something different.
Yeah, I honestly, I never really got overwhelmed, and I think it was a good response. I made sure to really see that it wasn't just, one gender replying more than the other. I really pushed for an equal amount of both guys and girls giving a good response. But I also wanted to make it very, not triggering. And I think in today's day and age, you have to be really sensitive, just like in stand-up comedy. You have to be so careful as to what terminology you use, regarding gender, sexual orientation. You obviously know, being in our age group, it's super, something to be aware of. And so that's something else is in this book, I made sure to be very hyper aware of the terminology and what I'm saying for, gender, and just being very, aware and keeping everyone in mind.
That's I didn't even think about that. Like we were talking about before with the whole cancel culture stuff, being a comedian, having to say the right stuff and just a 5-minute thing. I can only imagine just one word setting off 1,000 people in a book reading it. What did you mean by that? They interpret it completely different than what you actually were trying to, the point you were trying to get across.
Yeah, you have to be careful and keep it in mind. And for me, 90% of my followers, 90% of my followers, and I would say, more than, so many of my followers and fans online are teenagers, are guys and girls. And so everything that I post already, all the captions and hashtags, I have to be so mindful and aware. But every single day I get young adults and teenagers that are DMing me up the wazoo saying I'm going through this today. What do I do? Or I'm feeling depressed, or sometimes, kids will straight up message me and say, I want to end my life today. What should I do? It's really, it can be a lot at times. So I have to, be really aware of what's appropriate, what's triggering, what's too much. Wording myself, it's I'm a mental health advocate. I'm not an expert. And as an advocate, it's I can do these things, but I'm not, licensed. I don't have a degree in anything. And it's if a kid, which has happened, messages me saying, I want to end my life, it's I just have to go about it in such a specific way, where I give them resources and say you're not alone, I am here for you. So I'm definitely kind of conditioned and used to being very neutral, not triggering with what I post in general, because my Instagram, it's it's my brand, it's my image, so I'm very aware of that. And I've thought about it sometimes getting a personal Instagram or a personal Snapchat where I can be a normal 25-year-old, but yeah, I kind of like having both.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I literally have one Instagram handle. Like, I couldn't navigate 3 or 4 different accounts. Like, if I tried, like, to have a podcast page, a business page, a personal page. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it all in one. See what people think. You know?
It's a lot. You're smart. I mean, I'm actually starting a new podcast too with my friend in Miami, and so we are actually making a whole separate YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat for that, for all the behind the scenes content. So I'm excited to take that on, but it's going to be like a whole new ballpark.
No, I mean, it's going to be fun, especially in the new age where social media is basically taken over everything. Have you ever even considered doing, like, because you talk about like the virtual classroom and writing a book about it, because you said you're doing the audiobook right now as well. Like that could even get as much of a bigger turnout as the actual hard copy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been really, really fun. Like I said, this is my 4th book, and I've never done an audio book before. So it's been fun researching how to record it, using the proper equipment, and, kind of, I don't know, like, I'm excited to see how that does in sales. But I think it's really popular. I think podcasts and audiobooks are like the way of the future. And obviously, I still love paperback. I still love reading a good old-fashioned, normal book. But I definitely, once again, I think it's important as a brand or a company to, like, kind of go with the current times rather than, being like, no, this is what worked 10 years ago. It's like, I love to stay up to date with what's trending, what, like I said, my role models and idols are doing, and kind of, not piggybacking off of them, but like kind of, in a sense, I think it's smart to see what they're doing, what makes them successful, and then making it happen in your own brand.
So with that being said, you were talking about before that you guys are already working on another book. What is that book?
So that book, I can't disclose too much, but what I will say is it's going to be a 3-part series.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited. It's going to be, all I can kind of give away is it's going to be all about girl power and girls. And it's going to be like a fun comic book. I think Marvel, like action superhero, like Wonder Woman, all of like your favorite female heroes. And it's going to be loosely based off of my personal experience in high school, but it's going to be like a comic book style.
That's really interesting. And that's got to be so exciting, too, because it's a 3-part series. You're not thinking like one-dimensional. It's like, all right, the next 7-8 months or so, I'm going to be writing this one book. Like, you actually have stuff you're excited about, 2 years on end.
Yes, I'm really excited. And like, we've already started, mapping out, like what's chapter 1 and what's book 1 about. And it's cool because I think people, they get attached to a character and they want to see, her succeed and, see her like her first date and all these cool things and like see where her life goes. So basically, it's loosely based off of my life, but it's like, I'm going to use a different name, but it's all going to be like, hot pink and like total comic book, but like for adults. So I'm really excited. I
mean, you got to find the inspiration from somewhere. I mean, that's, I think, what most people do. They take certain aspects of their life and then they shape and mold it into something that, their target audience would like to see.
Yes.
I mean, that's going to be very cool. That's going to be very cool. Well, I won't take too much of your time. I know you probably got a busy day. I know I do as well. But when I was on your show, I do want to end with this, just to end with a bang. When I was on your show, you made me describe certain things, whether it was like my favorite snack. The one that stood out, though, was my most embarrassing moment. And I think I probably named you on the show, to where my dad was listening to the episodes. He's just like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Like, that's not even funny. Like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, whatever, Dad. But I wanted to get your most embarrassing moment before we ended the show, just to get you back, since I got that feedback from some people.
Oh my gosh. The tables have turned.
Totally to put you on the spot. Like, I'm not even going to be not to put you on the spot. Like, I'm totally putting you on the spot here. What is your most embarrassing moment before we leave?
Okay, my most embarrassing moment. Do you want to know like career or something that happened in my personal life or just in general?
Like the epicenter of embarrassing things that have happened in your life. It doesn't have to be either or.
Oh. Oh, this happened only 2 weeks ago. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's so bad. Really?
Yeah, very cringy.
Was it that date that you were talking about before?
No, that was that date. That wasn't embarrassing. That was like horrible. That was a horror movie date. I've never been on a date like that. Like the guy started yelling at me in public at a restaurant, and it was so embarrassing. But okay, this other story I'm going to tell. So, okay, I will say, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. So 2 weeks ago, I had just gotten out of a blood test. I was, checking like normal blood test routine. And I obviously live a very busy life. So sometimes I'm texting, and I meant to send a text to my mom saying, just as a joke, my mom and I are really close. And I'm just like, oh, like everything's looking fine. Like, I went into detail about specific like hormones and certain things what the test results. And I accidentally texted it to a guy.
Important guy or just someone in your contact list?
A guy that I was like talking to and like kind of dating, which was so embarrassing. Like so embarrassing. Like
so important. Important.
I was
Yikes.
talking about, like, oh mom, like I tested negative for all this. The moment I realized, because he texted me back a question mark, and I'm like, what? And then I saw it, and I'm like, huh? And he's like, I hope you're okay. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I meant to send this to my mom.
That's not fun at all. I don't think I've ever done anything like that.
Be careful about when you're texting. Like, seriously, some of like those horror stories where you just text like a girl you're dating or like a work person or like your boss, and it's supposed to go to like your parent, or oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing.
I mean, you could get overwhelmed easily with everything going on in your life. You're just sending a quick text to just, be like, all right, mom, like this is what's going on. And you don't realize that the top of your dashboard, your feed is your boyfriend. So that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate. I think the only time that's ever happened to me, and it wasn't me, it was another person that sent a text to me, was my mother. So just to kind of continue on to that trend. I don't know what I was texting her about. This was a few years ago. I remember it distinctively in my head because of what the response was. Yeah. She must have just been like sitting on her phone or something. It must have been like a butt text or whatever. But like I was texting her about like maybe like talking about flights to come home for the holidays or something. And her only response was, and I didn't hear for her for like 24 hours after this, was anal. Like just the word ANAL. I'm like, that's not something. My mom's just like, that's nothing. She would never say anything like that. And I showed my sister that. She's like, holy shit. Like, it was definitely just a typo, and she's going to feel so embarrassed by it. And she was, because I sent it in the family group.
That's really funny.
I don't remember what we were talking about, but that was her response. And I'm like,
yeah.
What? What are you talking about, Mom? We hold that against her from time to time. Funny. It's all fun. But thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks so much for being vulnerable right there and sharing your most embarrassing story. We got the How to Thrive in a Virtual Classroom book. It's available for pre-order now. There it is right there. This was episode 442 of the podcast. Again, we're presented by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness. They are open now, finally, after 6 months of promoting. I can finally say that they're open in downtown Scottsdale. Go check it out. Zach, hit the lights.